Hi everyone, I'm Governor Jared Polis and welcome to the 2021 Colorado Poetry Out Loud Virtual State Finals. Thank you to Lighthouse Writers Workshop, Colorado Creative Industries, the Poetry Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts for their work in support of Poetry Out Loud. What a powerful tool to bring us together around a shared experience. Large-scale political and social change is often predated by cultural change, and specifically poetry, literature, song can communicate ideas in a novel and real way to reach people, reach them really in their heart and show them a different perspective. Since 2005, more than 4 million students and 65,000 teachers from 16,000 schools have participated in Poetry Out Loud. That's more than 4 million students have learned at least one poem by heart in Colorado. Nearly 40,000 students participate in the program here, learning the power of poetry firsthand. This year, over 1,000 students across our state participated in the program, despite some schools being closed and some in hybrid due to the pandemic. Your commitment to poetry, the arts, and pursuing your dreams amid adversity in a pandemic is truly inspiring. It's now my honor and privilege to introduce the host and MC of today's event, Colorado's Poet Laureate, Bobby Lefebvre.
Thank you, Governor Polis. I'm thrilled and honored to be here at Lighthouse Writers Workshop in Denver as your host for the 16th Annual Colorado State Finals of Poetry Out Loud. It's also my pleasure to welcome you to the very first and hopefully only virtual state finals. Congratulations to the finalists showcase here today. Poetry Out Loud is a free national program offered by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation in partnership with Colorado Creative Industries and Lighthouse Writers Workshop, and is open to all Colorado high school students grades 9 through 12. Poetry Out Loud encourages students to learn about great poetry through memorization and recitation. The program helps students master public speaking skills, build self-confidence, and discover their literary heritage through classical and contemporary poetry. The Poetry Out Loud competition actually begins in the classroom, with winners advancing school-wide, then to the state finals. Our state champion, crowned here, will go on to represent Colorado at the National Poetry Out Loud Finals in May, and they will also receive $200. The winner's school will receive a $500 stipend for the purchase of poetry books. One runner-up will receive $100 with $200 for their school library. And at the national finals, Poetry Out Loud will award more than $50,000, including a cash prize of $20,000 for the Poetry Out Loud national champion. In a year where everything has been canceled or moved to virtual platforms, we are delighted to have 10 students representing schools and nonprofit organizations from across the state participating in our program this year. These students and teachers have worked hard to select and prepare the poems that have touched them in some way. We would like to thank all of you and our visiting artists for participating in our program this year, of all years. You are continuing the great conversation that is American poetry and opening the world of arts to so many people throughout the state. As COVID-19 continues to impact our lives, it has also changed the nature of Poetry Out Loud competitions across the country. Usually, Colorado, along with the other U.S. states and territories, hold in-person live state finals competitions, where students compete for a chance to represent their state at the national finals in Washington, D.C. This year, however, in order to ensure the safety and well-being of students, parents, teachers, and everyone involved with the competition, both the Colorado and national finals are virtual competitions. This means that each of the 10 state finalists you will see perform today submitted video recordings of their poem recitations for each of the 3 rounds of the competition. In late February, the judges gathered virtually with the state coordinator to conduct the competition. During this judging session, the judges viewed the student performances in the same order you will see today, and they assessed them individually as they would in a live event. And also like a live event, the performances were only seen once. No skipping back and rewatching any of the video was permitted. Today's virtual competition takes place in 3 rounds. In the first 2 rounds, you will see all 10 state finalists' poem recitation videos. In the third and final round, you will see videos of the 3 finalists, which are the students with the highest cumulative scores from rounds 1 and 2. The judges' scores from round 3 are added to the 2 previous rounds to determine the Colorado Poetry Out Loud state champion and the state runner-up. The poems the students chose to recite are from a large anthology that represents classic and contemporary poetry. One poem must have been written prior to the 20th century, and one poem needs to be 25 lines or fewer. Both requirements can be met with one poem. Students may recite these poems in any of the rounds. The students in this competition are fortunate to have talented poets, performers, artists, and cultural leaders of Colorado as judges. Because Poetry Out Loud involves both the poetic art and its presentation, our judges represent both the literary and performing arts communities. Since the students are judged on their memorization and interpretation of the poems that they select, there are two types of judges. The first is the accuracy judge. There is one accuracy judge. Accuracy is the first element of recitation. The most basic task for the student is to keep the poet's language intact for the audience. Given that accuracy is the foundation of a good recitation, serving as accuracy judge is a critical component of the evaluation process.
The accuracy scoring is both really easy and also devastating because it's like sometimes they do a great job and they forget the word the, and you're like, I'm so sorry.
I'm expecting that there won't be as many errors because they can do as many takes as they want to.
Yeah, I think so too.
Our accuracy judge for this competition is Sydney Fowler. Sydney aims to uplift the voices of the invisible and misrepresented other through their writing, teaching, and activism. As a sensitivity reader, they consult with authors of fiction and nonfiction to create more respectful and authentic representations of marginalized communities. They're the host of the Sensitivity Reader podcast, and Sydney's work has appeared in the Snarktastic Guide to College Success, New Directions in Folklore, and the Handbook of Sexuality Leadership.
I was the accuracy judge at Poetry Out Loud last year, and I really enjoyed it. It was really cool to see and hear all of the poetry performances, and I'm excited to be back.
The second type of judge for Poetry Out Loud competition is the performance judge. There are 5 performance judges. A performance judge evaluates each student's recitation based on the student's interpretation of the poem according to the Poetry Out Loud evaluation criteria. This criteria is broken into 5 categories: physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, evidence of understanding, and overall performance. The performance judges for this competition are Stephen Brackett. Stephen is Colorado's music ambassador appointed by Governor Polis. He has toured the world as an MC and singer with his band Flowbots, using music as a platform for engagement and collective empowerment. He is also the co-founder of the nonprofit organization Youth on Record, whose mission is to empower Colorado's youth to achieve their academic, artistic, and personal best by employing local professional artists as their educators.
I am a lover of cats and poetry and all things creative, so I'm really honored to be here.
Heather Dalton. Heather is the director of production at PBS 12 and is a proud public media advocate. She has over 25 years of television experience, including founding the PBS 12 music and variety series Sounds on 29th. She has also produced and directed the documentary Neil Cassidy, The Denver Years, about Jack Kerouac's muse for On the Road. As a dedicated supporter of Colorado's creatives, Dalton is committed to building community through public media.
It's nice to be with such an esteemed panel of really incredible judges, so hello all.
Ryan Fu. Ryan is a stage manager, host, and event producer who has worked in the city of Denver for nearly 10 years. He has tenure with the Black Actors Guild, Conscious Creatives, and Peace Jam, among others. He's incredibly excited to help with Poetry Out Loud, knowing the power of beautiful writing and talented performers. As a member of the Guild and entertainer in his own right, Ryan is glad to see such a full variety of local talent at work and is excited to see all the great poems come to life.
I've always had a great love for the arts, and I've been a judge for, I've been a Poetry Out Loud judge for, I think, 5 years, maybe 4, I don't know. Time is a flat circle, but happy to be here, happy to see some youngins do smart.
Soo-Yun Juliet Lee. Juliet works as the program director at Chinook Fund in Denver. Her books include Underground National, Solar Maximum, No Comet, That Serpent in the Sky Means Noise, and Aerial Concave Without Cloud. A Pew Fellow in the Arts for Literature, she holds residencies in video art and poetry at many museums and institutes across the world. Juliet is also the founder of Calibration Press, a chapbook series of innovative multi-ethnic writing. Her essays on race, contemporary poetics, and the avant-garde have appeared with Cambridge University Press, the Poetry Foundation, Iowa University Press, and elsewhere.
But I'm a writer and have previously judged for POL here in Colorado. I think this is my 3rd time now.
Susie Q. Smith. Susie is an award-winning artist, activist, and educator who lives in Denver, Colorado. Her forthcoming collection of poems, A Gospel of Bones, will be available from Alternating Current Press soon, and her second collection, Poems for the End of the World, will be available from Finishing Line Press in June 2021.
And I used to be the Poetry Out Loud State Coordinator 2 years ago, so I know a little bit about these here shenanigans.
So is everyone ready? Should we just start the calibration round? Okay, excellent.
There lies a somnolent lake under a noiseless sky, where never the mornings break nor the evenings die. Mad flakes of color whirl on its even face.
2 roads diverged in a wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth.
Or were we ready to jump into round 1? Let's go. All right, we're jumping in. I love that. Okay.
Now that we've met all of our accomplished and talented judges, let's get started with round 1 of our Poetry Out Loud presentations. Our first competitor is Mayan Kaplan from George Washington High School, representing the nonprofit organization Central City Opera, whose competition she competed in as an independent student.
Broken Promises by David Kirby. I have met them in dark alleys, limping and one-armed. I have seen them playing cards under a single light bulb and tried to join in, but they refused me, rudely, knowing I would only let them win. I have seen them in the foyers of theaters, coming back late from the interval, long after the others have taken their seats, and in deserted shopping malls late at night, peering at things they can never buy. And I have found them wandering in a wood where I too have wandered. This morning, I caught one. Small and stupid. Too slow to get away. It was only a promise I had made to myself once and then forgot, but it screamed and kicked at me and ran to join the others, who looked at me with reproach in their long, sad faces. When I drew near them, they scurried away, even though they will sleep in my yard tonight. I hate them for their ingratitude. I, who have kept countless promises, as dead now as Shakespeare's children. You bastards, I scream. You have to love me. I gave you life.
Up next is Alejandra Naranjo from Eaton High School.
Violins by Rowan Ricardo Phillips. He never saw a violin, but he saw a lifetime of violence. This is not to presume that if he had simply seen a violin, he would have seen less violence, or that living among violins as though they were boulangeries or toppling stacks of other glazed goods, like young adult fiction, would have made the violence less crack and more cocaine, less of course and more why God, oh why, more of one thing doesn't rhyme with one thing. A swill of stars doesn't rhyme with star. A posse of poets doesn't rhyme with poet. We are all in prison. This is the brutal lesson of the 21st century, swilled like a sour stone through the vein of the beast who watches you while you eat. our eternal host, the chummed fiddler, the better tomorrow, 2016.
Our next competitor is Kadro Abdi from Fort Morgan High School.
And I will be presenting Passing by Toy Derka. A professor invites me to his Black Lit class. They're reading Larson's Passing. One of the black students says, "Sometimes light-skinned blacks think they can fool other blacks, but I can always tell, looking right through me, after I tell them I am black." I asked the class, was I passing when I was just sitting here? Before I told you? A white woman shakes her head desperately as if I had deliberately deceived her. She keeps examining my face, then turning away, as if she hopes I'll disappear. I presume passing is based on what I leave out and not what she fills in. In one scene, in the book, in a restaurant, she's passing, though no one checked her at the door. "Hey, you black?" My father, who looked white, told me this story. Every year, when he'd go to get his driver's license, the man at the window filling out the form would ask, "White or black?" Pencil poised without looking up. My father wouldn't pass, but he might use silence to trap a devil. When he didn't speak, the man would look up at my father's face. "What did he write?" my father quizzed me.
Our next competitor is Aiden Reed from Fountain Valley School in Colorado Springs.
The Days Gone by James Whitcomb Riley. Oh, the days gone by. Oh, the days gone by, the apples in the orchard and the pathway through the rye, the chirp of the robin and the whistle of the quail as he piped across the meadows, sweet as any nightingale, when the bloom was on the clover and the blue was in the sky, and my happy heart brimmed over in the days gone by. In the days gone by when my naked feet were tripped by the honeysuckle's tangles, where the water lilies dipped, and the ripples of the river lipped the moss along the brink, where the placid-eyed and lazy-footed cattle came to drink, and the tilting snipe stood fearless of the truant's wayward cry, and the splashing of the swimmer in the days gone by. Oh, the days gone by. Oh, the days gone by, the music of the laughing lip, the luster of the eye, the childish faith in fairies and Aladdin's magic ring, the simple, soul-reposing, glad belief in everything, when life was like a story holding neither sob nor sigh, in the golden olden glory of the days gone by.
Up next is Tim Hought from Liberty High School in Colorado Springs.
Retired Ballerinas, Central Park West, by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Retired ballerinas on winter afternoons, walking their dogs in Central Park West, or their cats on leashes. The cats themselves, old high-wire artists. The ballerinas leap and pirouette through Columbus Circle, while winos on park benches, laid back like drunken goudavons, hear the taxis trumpet together like horsemen of the apocalypse in the dusk of the gods. It is the final witching hour, when swains are full of swan songs, and all return through the dark dusk to their bright cells in glass high-rises, or sit down to oval cigarettes and cakes in the Russian tea room, or climb 4 flights to back rooms in West Side brownstones, where faded playbill photos fall, peeling from their frames like last year's autumn leaves.
Our next competitor is Nati Jirachitkau from Peak to Peak Charter School in Lafayette.
I will be performing 100 Love Sonnets number 17 by Pablo Neruda and translated by Mark Eisner. I don't love you as if you were a rose of salt, topaz, or air of carnations that propagate fire. I love you as one loves certain obscure things, secretly between the shadow and the soul. I love you as the plant that doesn't bloom but carries the light of those flowers hidden within itself, and thanks to your love, the tight aroma that arose from the earth lives dimly in my body. I love you without knowing how or when or from where. I love you directly without problems or pride. I love you like this because I don't know any other way to love except in this form in which I am not, nor are you. So close that your hand upon my chest is mine. So close that your eyes close with my dreams.
Our next competitor is Isabel Terrent from Summit High School in Breckenridge.
The Children's Hour by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Between the dark and the daylight, when the night is beginning to lower, comes a pause in the day's occupations that is known as the Children's Hour. I hear in the chamber above me the patter of little feet, the sound of a door that is opened, and voices soft and sweet. From my study I see in the lamplight, descending the broad hall stair, grave Alice and laughing Allegra and Edith with golden hair. A whisper, and then a silence. Yet I know by their merry eyes they are plotting and planning together to take me by surprise. A sudden rush from the stairway, a sudden raid from the hall. By 3 doors left unguarded, they enter my castle wall. They climb up into my turret or the arms and back of my chair. If I try to escape, they surround me. They seem to be everywhere. They almost devour me with kisses, their arms about me entwine, till I think of the Bishop of Bingen in his mouse tower on the Rhine. Do you think, O blue-eyed banditti, because you have scaled the wall, such an old mustache as I am is not a match for you all? I have you fast in my fortress and will not let you depart, but put you down into the dungeon in the round tower of my heart. And there will I keep you forever, yes, forever and a day, till the walls shall crumble to ruin and molder in dust away.
Up next is Bethany Tawuli from Swink High School.
April Love by Ernest Dowson. We have walked in love's land a little way. We have learnt his lesson a little while. And shall we not part at the end of day with a sigh, a smile? A little while in the shine of the sun we were twined together, joined lips, forgot how the shadows fall when the day is done and when love is not. We have made no vows, there will none be broke. Our love was free as the wind on the hill. There was no word said, we need wish unspoke. We have wrought no ill. So shall we not part at the end of day, who have loved and lingered a little while, join lips for the last time, go our way with a sigh, a smile.
Our next competitor is Dina Barashk from the Academy of Charter Schools in Westminster.
One Art by Elizabeth Bishop.
And our final competitor is Savannah Wanavo from Valor Christian High School in Highlands Ranch.
Siren Song by Margaret Atwood.
This is the one song that everyone would like to learn. The song that is irresistible. The song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons even though they see the beached skulls. The song nobody knows, because anyone who has heard it is dead, and the others can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret, and if I do, will you get me out of this bird suit? I don't enjoy it here, squatting on this island, looking picturesque and mythical with these two feathery maniacs. I don't enjoy singing this trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you, only to you. Come closer. This song is a cry for help. Help me. Only you can. You are unique. At last. Alas, it is a boring song, but it works every time.
That concludes round 1. We'll now move on to round 2. In this round, the recitation order will be reversed, with the competitor who went first in round 1 going last. The first competitor in round 2 is Savannah Wanavo from Valor Christian High School in Highlands Ranch.
Love Lives Beyond the Tomb by John Clare. Love lives beyond the tomb, the earth which fades like dew. I love the fond, the faithful, and the true. Love lives in sleep. 'Tis happiness of healthy dreams. Eve's dews may weep, but love delightful seems. 'Tis seen in flowers, and in the even's pearly dew, on earth's green hours, and in the heaven's eternal blue. 'Tis heard in spring, when light and sunbeams warm and kind, on angel's wing bring love and music to the wind. And where is voice, so young, so beautiful and sweet as nature's choice, where spring and lovers meet? Love lives beyond the tomb, the earth, the flowers, and dew. I love the fond, the faithful, young and true.
Our next competitor is Dina Barashk from the Academy of Charter Schools in Westminster.
Violins by Rowan Ricardo Phillips. He never saw a violin, but he saw a lifetime of violence. This is not to presume that if he had simply seen a violin, he would have seen less violence, or that living among violins as though they were boulangeries or toppling stacks of other glazed goods like young adult fiction would have made the violence less crack and more cocaine, less of course and more why God, oh why. More of one thing doesn't rhyme with one thing. A swill of stars doesn't rhyme with star. A posse of poets doesn't rhyme with poet. We are all in prison. This is the brutal lesson of the 21st century, swilled like a sour stone through the vein of the beast who watches you while you eat. Our eternal host, the chummed fiddler, the better tomorrow, 2016.
Up next is Bethany Tawuli from Swink High School.
The Wooden Toy by Charles Simic. 1. The brightly painted horse had a boy's face, and 4 small wheels under his feet, plus a long string to pull him by this way and that across the floor, should you care to. A string in waiting that slipped away in many whiles from each and every try. 2. Knock and they'll answer, Mother told me. So I climbed 4 flights of stairs and went in unannounced, and found a small wooden toy for the taking in the ensuing emptiness and the fading daylight. That still gives me a shudder, as if I held the key to mysteries in my hand. 3. Where's the lost and found apartment? And the quiet entry? The undeveloped film of the few clear moments of our blurred lives. Where's the drop of blood? And the teeny nail that pricked my finger as I bent down to touch the toy and caught its eye. 4. Evening light. Make me a Sunday go-to meeting shadow for my toy. My dearest memories are steep stairwells and dusty buildings on dead-end streets where I talk to the walls and close doors as if they understood me. 5. The wooden toy sitting pretty. No, quieter than that. Like the sound of eyebrows raised by a villain in a silent mood. Psst. Someone said behind my back.
Our next competitor is Isabel Terrent from Summit High School in Breckenridge.
After the Winter by Claude Mckay. Someday, when trees have shed their leaves and against the morning's white, the shivering birds beneath the eaves have sheltered for the night. We'll turn our faces southward, love, toward the summer isle, where bamboos spire the shafted grove and wide-mouthed orchids smile. And we will seek the quiet hill, where towers the cotton tree and leaps the laughing crystal rill and works the droning bee. And we will build a cottage there beside an open glade with black-ribbed bluebells blowing near and ferns that never fade.
Our next competitor is Nati Jirachit from Peak to Peak Charter School in Lafayette.
The Light of Stars by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The night is come, but not too soon, and sinking silently, all silently, the little moon drops down behind the sky. There is no light in earth or heaven but the cold light of stars, and the first watch of night is given to the red planet Mars. Is it the tender star of love, the star of love and dreams? Oh no, from that blue tent above, a hero's armor gleams. And earnest thoughts within me rise when I behold afar, suspended in the evening skies, the shield of that red star. O star of strength, I see thee stand and smile upon my pain. Thou beckonest with thy mallet hand, and I am strong again. Within my breast there is no light but the cold light of stars. I give the first watch of the night to the red planet Mars. The star of the unconquered will, he rises in my breast, serene and resolute and still and calm and self-possessed. And thou too, whose sower thou art, that readest this brief psalm, as one by one thy hopes depart, be resolute and calm. O fear not in a world like this, and thou shalt know ere long, know how sublime a thing it is to suffer and be strong.
Up next is Tim Hought from Liberty High School in Colorado Springs.
The Seekers of Life by Arthur Rambo, translated by Wallace Fowley. When the child's forehead, full of red torments, implores the white swarm of indistinct dreams, there come near his bed 2 tall, charming sisters, with slim fingers that have silvery nails. They seat the child in front of a wide, open window where the blue air bathes a mass of flowers. And in his heavy hair, where the dew falls, move their delicate, fearful, and enticing fingers. He listens to the singing of their apprehensive breath, which smells of long, rosy plant honey, and which, at times, a hiss interrupts. Saliva caught on the lip, or desire for kisses. He hears their black eyelashes beating in the perfumed silence, and their gentle, electric fingers make, in his half-drunken indolence, the death of the little lice crackle under their royal nails. Then the wine of sloth rises in him, the sigh of an harmonica which could bring on delirium. The child feels, according to the slowness of the caresses, surging in him and dying continuously, a desire to cry.
Our next competitor is Aiden Reed from Fountain Valley School in Colorado Springs.
Tomorrow by Dennis O'Driscoll. First, tomorrow I will start to be happy. The morning will light up like a celebratory cigar. Sunbeams sprawling on the lawn will set dew sparkling like a cut glass tumbler of champagne. Today will end the worst phase of my life. I will put my shapeless days behind me, fencing off the past as a golden rind of sand parts slipshod sea from solid land. It is tomorrow I want to look back on, not today. Tomorrow I start to be happy. Today is almost yesterday. Second, Australia. How wise you are to get the day over and done with first, out of the way. You have eaten the fruit of knowledge while we are dithering about which main course to choose. How liberated you must feel, how free from doubt the rise and fall of stocks. Today's closing prices are revealed to you before our bidding has begun. Australia, you can gather in your accident statistics like a harvest, while our roads still have hours to kill. When we are in the dark, you have sagely seen the light. Third, cagily, presumptuously, I dare to write 2018, a date without character or tone. 2018, a year without interest rates or mean daily temperature. Its hit songs have yet to be written, its New Year babies yet to be induced, its truces to be signed. Much too far off for prophecy, though one hazards a tentative guess, a so-so year most likely, vague in retrospect, fizzling out with the usual end of season sales, everything slashed. Your last chance to salvage something of its style.
Our next competitor is Kadro Abdi from Fort Morgan High School.
I will be presenting Let the Light Enter by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. The dying words of Goethe. Light, more light, the shadows deepen, and my life is ebbing low. Throw the windows widely open. Light, more light before I go. Softly let the balmy sunshine play around my dying bed. Ere the dimly lighted valley I with lonely feet must tread. Light, more light, for death is weaving shadows round my waning sight. And I fain would gaze upon him through a stream of earthly light. Not for greater gifts of genius, not for thoughts more grandly bright. All the dying poet whispers is a prayer for light, more light. Heeds he not the gathered laurels fading slowly from his sight. All the poet's aspirations center in that prayer for light. Gracious Savior, when life's daydreams melt and vanish from the sight, may our dim and longing vision then be blessed with light, more light.
Up next is Alejandra Naranjo from Eaton High School.
Blade Unplugged by Tim Siebels. It's true, I almost never smile, but that doesn't mean I'm not in love. My heart is that black violin played slowly. You know that moment late in the solo when the voice is so pure you feel the blood in it. The wound between rage and complete surrender. That's where I'm smiling. You just can't see it. The sound bleeding perfectly inside me. The first time I killed a vampire, I was sad. I mean, we were almost family. But that's so many lives ago. I believe in the cry that cuts into the melody, the strings calling back the forgotten world. When I think of the madness that has made me in the midnight, I walk inside all day long. When I think of that one note that breaks what's left of what's human in me, man, I love everything.
And our final competitor for round 2 is Mayan Kaplan, representing Central City Opera.
Shiloh, a Requiem, April 1862, by Herman Melville. Skimming lightly, wheeling still, the swallows fly low over the field in clouded days. The forest field of Shiloh, over the field where April rain solaced the parched ones stretched in pain through the pause of night that followed the Sunday fight around the church of Shiloh. The church so lone, the log-built one that echoed to many a parting groan and natural prayer of the dying foemen mingled there. Foemen at morn, but friends at eve, fame or country least their care. What like a bullet can undeceive? But now they lie low, while over them the swallows skim, and all is hushed at Shiloh.
That concludes round 2. Congratulations to all of our 10 state finalists for your hard work and dedication to Poetry Out Loud this year. I suspect you're all ready to hear which of these talented performers will advance to the next level of competition, the third and final round. These finalists are the students who received the highest combined scores from rounds 1 and 2. I'm pleased to announce these talented students will compete for a chance to be crowned Colorado Poetry Out Loud State Champ and State Runner-Up. Alejandra Naranjo from Eaton High School, Aiden Reed from Fountain Valley School, and Savannah Wanavo from Valor Christian High School. Let's begin the final round of our competition to determine our state champion. Up first is Alejandra Naranjo from Eaton High School.
No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. By Mirza Asdullah Khan Ghalib. Translated by Vijay Sheshadri. No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. If I'd lived longer, I would have waited longer. Knowing you are faithless keeps me alive and hungry. Knowing you faithful would kill me with joy. Delicate are you, and your vows are delicate too. So easily do they break. You are a laconic marksman. You leave me not dead, but perpetually dying. I want my friends to heal me, succor me. Instead, I get analysis, conflagrations that would make stones drip blood are campfires compared to my anguish. Two-headed, inescapable anguish. Love's anguish, or the anguish of time. Another dark, severing, incommunicable night. Death would be fine if I only died once. I would have liked a solitary death. Not this lavish funeral, this grave anyone can visit. You are mystical, Ghalib, and also you speak beautifully. Are you a saint? Or just drunk as usual?
Our next competitor is Aiden Reed from Fountain Valley School.
My therapist wants to know about my relationship to work, by Tiana Clark. I hustle. Upstream, I grasp, I grind, I control, and panic. Poke balloons in my chest, always popping there. Always my thoughts, thump thump, I snooze. Wake and go, boom, all day like this. I short my breath, I scroll and scroll. I see what you wrote. I like, I heart, my thumb. So tired, my head bent down, but not in prayer. Heavy from the looking. I see your face, your phone lit faces. I tap your food 2 times for more hearts. I retweet, I email, yes, and yes. And yes, then I cry and need to say, no, no, no. Why does it take so long to reply? I FOMO and shout. I read, I never enough. New book, new post, new ping, a new tab, then another. Papers on the floor, scattered and stacked. So many journals, unbroken white spines, waiting. Did you hear that new? I start to text back. Ellipsis, then I forget. I balk, I lazy the bed. I wallow when I write. I truth when I lie. I throw a book when a poem undoes me. I underline Clifton. Today, we are possible. I start from image. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley, reaching for coal. I start with the napkin, receipt or my hand. I muscle memory. I stutter the page. I fail, hit delete, scratch out one more line. I sonnet, then break form. I make tea, use 2 bags, rooibos again. I bathe now, Epsom salt, no books or phone, just water, and the sound of water filling. Glory be my buoyant body, bowl of me. Yes, lavender, More bubbles and bath bomb, of course, some candles too. All alone with Coltrane. My favorite, Naima for his wife. Now for me, inside my own womb. Again, I child back. I float, I sing, I simple and humble. Eyes close, I low my voice. Was it a psalm? Don't know, but I stopped.
The final recitation is from Savannah Wanavo from Valor Christian High School.
All This and More by Mary Carr. The Devil's Tour of Hell did not include a factory line where molten lead spilled into mouths held wide, no electric drill spiraling screws into hands and feet, nor giant pliers to lower you into simmering vats. Instead, a circle of light opened on your stuffed armchair, whose chintz orchids did not boil and change. And the devil adjusted your new spiked antenna almost delicately, with claws curled and lacquered black, before he spread his leather wings to leap into the acid green sky. So your head became a TV hole, a gargoyle mirror. Your doppelganger, sloppy at the mouth and swollen at the joints, enacted your days in sinuous, slow motion, your lines delivered with a mocking sneer. Sometimes the frame froze, reversed, began again. The red eyes of a friend you cursed, your girl child cowered behind the drapes, parents alive again and puzzled by this new form. That's why you clawed your way back to this life.
That concludes our final round. What impressive performances by all three of these competitors. Before we announce the winners, we'd like to share a message from Margaret Hunt, the Executive Director of Colorado Creative Industries, which helped make all of this possible.
Thank you, Bobby. Hello, I'm Margaret Hunt, and I'm the Director of Colorado Creative Industries, a division of the Colorado Governor's Office of Economic Development. One of our goals is to ensure opportunities for arts education and creative skill development for Colorado youth. We aim to help students to succeed in school and to enter a workforce that depends on creative thinkers and innovators. And the Poetry Out Loud program is one of the ways our agency supports arts education for teens. Of course, a program like Poetry Out Loud relies on the talents, the time, and the generous support of our sponsors and volunteers. So I want to say a thank you to our national sponsors, the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation. Also, many thanks to our partner, Lighthouse Writers Workshop, who manages this program on our behalf. And of course, a huge thank you to our volunteers, the distinguished judges, our visiting artists, the CCI staff, and Poetry Out Loud coordinators, Ruth Wilson with CCI and Roxanne Banks-Malia with Lighthouse Writers Workshop. In a year that has brought challenges and heartache to so many Colorado families, your commitment to bringing the power of poetry to people throughout the state has provided much needed connection and community, even through our screens. Thank you to Bobby Lefebvre, Colorado's Poet Laureate, and thank you to all of you who have shown up for Colorado's teens, parents, and teachers, and for Poetry Out Loud this year. We can't wait to see you next year.
Thank you, Margaret. We are grateful for you and for Colorado Creative Industries' support of the arts and people pursuing lives of creativity across our great state. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Noodles & Company and Book Bar, for their gifts to the competitors, and boundless gratitude to our partners at the Colorado Film Office, our film crew, PBS 12, and the Lighthouse staff and volunteers, especially our interns for helping bring this live competition into the virtual space. And a special shout out to our calibration poets, Mckay Anderson and Marilyn Morentz, and the educators who went beyond the call of duty amid a global pandemic to support their students in this year's competition. Before we announce the winners, a quick reminder of the prizes ahead for them. In addition to this dazzling trophy, our state finals winner will also receive $200, and the winner's school will receive a $500 stipend for the purchase of poetry books. Our state runner-up will receive this beauty of a trophy, $100, and a $200 stipend for her school's library. At the national finals, Poetry Out Loud will award more than $50,000, including a cash prize of $20,000 for the Poetry Out Loud national champion. And because we love these finals trophies and our state finalists so much, our third place competitor and second runner-up will be the proud, deserving owner of this sparkling trophy. And now, it's time to announce the winners of the 2021 Colorado Poetry Out Loud State Finals, the moment we've all been waiting for. Our second runner-up is Savannah Wanavo from Valor Christian High School, who presented Siren Song by Margaret Atwood, Love Lives Beyond the Tomb by John Clare, and All This and More by Mary Carr. Our state runner-up is Alejandra Naranjo from Eaton High School, who presented Violins by Rowan Ricardo Phillips, Blade Unplugged by Tim Seibles, and No I Wasn't Meant to Love and Be Loved by Mirza Asadullah Khan Ghalib. Alejandra will receive $100 and $200 for the purchase of poetry books for her school library. Which means our 2021 champion for Poetry Out Loud in the state of Colorado is Aiden Reed from Fountain Valley School. Aiden performed The Days Gone by James Whitcomb Riley, Tomorrow by Dennis O'Driscoll, and My Therapist Wants to Know About My Relationship to Work by Tiana Clark. As a state champion, Aiden will receive a $200 prize, and her school will receive a $500 stipend for the purchase of poetry books. She will also advance to represent Colorado at the National Poetry Out Loud Finals in May. Congratulations to you, Aiden, and for all our competitors here today. Your inspiring performances show us that there is so much hope for the future, knowing it's in the hands of talented, thoughtful people like you. And thank you for joining us for our virtual competition today. We hope you'll tune in to PBS 12 on March 18th at 7 p.m. to watch the 1-hour special, Words by Heart, a showcase of the 2021 Colorado Poetry Out Loud Virtual State Finals. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay inspired.
Bobby, how long have you been the Poet Laureate? Is it 2 years?
Yeah, it's approaching, it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How does one become a Poet Laureate for a state?
Yeah, so it's a process. The program in Colorado is over 100 years old, which is pretty cool. And basically, it's an application process. Somebody has to nominate you. They have to believe that you have the minimum qualifications, which include history, either publishing or performing poetry, the ability to connect with people through poetry, the ability to effectively recite poetry. And then what happens is they assemble a team of folks who take all the applications and they read through them and they create a list of 3 to 4 people, and then they make a recommendation to the governor. The governor ultimately has the last say on who becomes Poet Laureate. Then they choose, and that person serves in Colorado a 4-year term. So I get to do this fun thing for 4 years. And in that, again, it's a little bit of traveling across the state to connect with people and just serving as an ambassador for poetry. So it's a similar process across the country. We have a national Poet Laureate, and that person is the Poet Laureate for the United States. It's a competitive process that often includes folks that have been contributing or a part of poetry for a while.